Hello, everyone. I'm just gonna skip the intro this week because it's gonna be a bit of a long-winded video. Don't click off yet.
Don't.
It's
Keep
gonna
going.
be due to the. If you haven't noticed or if you haven't heard, news has finally come in that the voice acting strike, the SAG-AFTRA strike, might actually be over. Everyone from Jeff Keighley to like a bunch of people have been talking about it because it's a big thing because it's been going on for like 11 months now. It's finally reaching its end because apparently a tentative agreement has been reached between the two sides, that being SAG-AFTRA and literally everyone in the video games industry. So that's good. We might finally be getting back to business as usual. Kind of. We'll be getting to that. Let's just go down the list of stuff that's come out of this, though. It's kind of interesting because
There's
a lot of good's going
there's
to
a
come
fair
out of
amount.
this. Yeah, there's a lot of good's going to come out of this because things are going to get back on track for the most part. But also, there's going to be a lot of. Let's take a retrospective and see what's kind of come of this. I won't bore you with the whole details. Several videos down in the description talking about it. But suffice to say that for the last 11 months, SAG-AFTRA, the Voice Actors Guild, has been striking for AI protections. And here's the thing: there's a lot of games that have been affected by this. Destiny's been affected.
Mm,
I've heard COD's been affected.
yes.
A lot of the MiHoYo games been affected, which we will get to. I actually want to touch on MiHoYo specifically in their games because that's a funny story, and I think that's kind of where a lot of the interesting stuff that's come out of this whole strike has come out of. But a lot of games have been affected, and like I said, let's hone in on the whole MiHoYo business for right now. MiHoYo, if you're not aware, is not a union project. It is not a union project. They are not on the list of unions or groups that were struck against the union. One company that they work with was on that strike list, but they have since changed studios since then. Like I think like 3, 4, 5 months back at this point, somewhere like that. So again, they're not part of it for the like entirety. And again, the only studio that was struck was, to my knowledge, the only one that makes the voice acting for Genshin, which is why that one was so affected. Here's the thing. Because Genshin is not a union project, technically speaking, the actors that play those characters in the game, and this might be a hot take, I don't know, maybe not, technically cannot use striking as a reason to withhold work. Don't get me wrong, they can strike in solidarity, and that's good for them. They want to stand up for their beliefs. However, because the union has no real sway, they can't use it as an official reason to withhold work for the most part. If the company calls them, they must come, or they should come in. Otherwise, like I said, they're striking solidarity. Why is that an important distinction to make? Because if you're not union, that means you have no union protection. Meaning that when you withhold work, the possibility of getting replaced becomes a thing that's on the table. Which actually did happen, as far as I'm aware. Whether this is strictly for the voice acting or not, I don't know. But this is particularly for Kenichi, which is a character that recently got introduced to Genshin like 4 or 5 months ago, depending on how you think of it. Might be a bit longer. I've yet to keep track of how long we're into the 5.0 line. Anyways,
Yes.
and I want to touch on Kenichi because, like I said, this one kind of revealed the whole thing behind SAG-AFTRA, from the fact that they consider voice actors who are not part of the union lesser to them, which, yeah, that's true. Their head negotiator literally was like basically calling them scabs. You're not part of the union, calling them lesser. So yeah. To the fact that voice actors were bullying the new guy who was playing Kenichi, who is a Japanese fellow. I don't remember his name off the top of my head. And they were basically saying, how dare you basically, take food off another person's plate, despite the fact that he was from Japan, so he genuinely didn't know about the strike because,
Yeah.
he works out of Japan.
Yeah.
How would he know what goes on in the American
I
Screen Actors
myself
Guild?
after like also heard about that one, and it's like he didn't know about it, so why are you on him?
So, a lot of, shall we say, laundry got exposed from the actors themselves.
Yeah.
And SAG itself, interestingly enough, kind of pushed for an interim agreement with MiHoYo to kind of make them union, to flip the project union. And Genshin players basically did what we never were accused we could do, and that is learn to read. Basically, in the interim agreement, it basically states, and again, there's another wonderful video linked down below that is made by Goat. He did a video down there that's actually, again, far more detailed than this. I'm just going to give you the Cliff Notes version for time's sake. But basically, in the actual interim agreement, it pretty much states that any company that basically signs this agreement basically now has to pretty much only employ union actors for pretty much all of the work, And anyone who's not on the union either has to join the union or leave the project. And the union has to also get basically consulted from there on out. Anyone that actually gets brought on the project that is in union. So basically you have to basically tell the union who you're bringing on and give them a reason why you should, which, yeah, that's not mafia behavior.
That's, that doesn't make it sound sketchy at all.
Yeah, that's not mafia behavior at all, is all I'm going to say. And apparently I've also heard that if you get rejected from the union, you get to keep your fees. So they'll refund you, which that's neither here nor there. But again, that's totally not mafia behavior. But, you know. So, like I said, SAG themselves has kind of been revealed as not that great. Because, like I said, their attempt to effectively monopolize the industry via this strike. Again, do I think that there is a genuine argument to be made here that there should be more protections for voice actors regarding AI? Yeah, absolutely now. It's a valid point to strike, especially right now with the rise in AI. But I'm going to say here, after what we've seen in Genshin and the whole storm that's come out of that and the interim agreement that we poked through, which as far as I'm aware, at least I could be wrong, but as far as I'm aware, is unanimous for all companies. So anyone who signed this agreement is now basically left to cling to the union's whims. Barring, again, whatever agreement they've came to. They haven't told us what the actual agreement is. We've heard recently that the publishers actually gave them their quote-unquote best and final offer. A few days later, a few weeks or so, whatever, they've come to a new agreement, or they've come to a tentative agreement. Whether it's based on that best and final offer, or whether they in the back room struck a new deal, we don't know. But like I said, it pretty much is interesting that this interim agreement kind of gave the mafia, kind of gave the guild, the voice actors guild, the union.
The union.
Effectively kind of a soft monopoly over the project. And again, like I said, it'll be interesting to see if any of this carries over into going forward. So it's not surprising given that why MiHoYo in general was very much keeping their stance of not signing the contract. So yeah, that's the whole business of SAG-AFTRA. It's messy. One particular voice actor who actually does the voice of Risley in Genshin actually made a video himself. Joe Zera? I think I pronounced that right. If not, sorry, Joe. I'm terrible with names, as it turns out sometimes.
Apologies.
But he did a great video also detailing what you need to know about the strike. Also detailing the full list of companies that got struck, as well as the fact that, you know, Hoyo is not officially struck, which means technically they should be barred from this, or they should be shielded, I should say, despite the fact they weren't. But again, that's neither here nor there. Again, also down in the description. So where does that leave us right now, yeah? Well, it leaves us in a position where work hopefully will start coming back to the US, and voice actors in the US will finally start being able to recast their roles, because there was some talk here and there that possibly the Voice Actors Guild may have been actually telling them to not, you know, work, despite the fact that they might have been on non-union projects, due to the fact that apparently the Venti voice actress said in offhand that may or may not have been threatening her, but again, that's just, we have no proof, that's just hearsay, so take that with a grain of salt. But again, considering what we've seen of the Voice Actors Guild, I'm just going to say that it is, I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, what does that leave us? Well, it leaves us in a position where hopefully the voice actors who want to get back to work can get back to work. They don't have to worry about the wrath of the union coming down on them anymore. Guild, or whatever the hell they want to call themselves. But there is one problem. And that's the big one. And that is that while this whole thing has been, on the surface at the very least, done in the name of protecting against AI, which again is a very admirable cause.
And there's a reason for it.
There is a reason for it. That doesn't excuse the elephant in the room of, despite the fact that they were afraid of voice actors replacing them with AI, or AIs replacing the voice actors, it seems they failed to take into account other voice actors replacing them. And what I mean by this is because of the fact that this has dragged on so long, certain companies, like Hoyo, have actually started seeking work elsewhere. If you haven't been keeping track of the Genshin community, a lot of the newer characters that have come out that are voiced by actors that are based out of Britain, or as we mentioned before, Japan, and I'm sure a few other places that I'm not aware of. But the point is that work is moving away from the US. And my guess is Hoyo ain't alone in there either. Or at least the studios doing Genshin ain't alone either. I'm sure all three, as far as I'm aware, all three games have their own studios. So, again, the question is, while the work might be coming back to the US, the question is how much work will actually come back to the US. The voice actors that still have their jobs can go back to work, sure, but how much work from now on is actually going to be in the US and not elsewhere, because companies are going to be a little, shall we say, hesitant to come back to the US after this whole clusterfuck that has come from the voice actors business.
Yeah,
Like I said,
it's not good reputation. That's to say the least.
yeah, again, it's an admirable cause, at least on the surface. Like I said, we've touched on why that may or may not be it. But like I said, it's still worth noting that a lot of game publishers might be a bit hesitant to do their work now in the US because of all this. Again, we'll have to see what the details of the full agreement that they've possibly settled on, the tentative agreement they've settled on, which by the sounds of the word tentative means that it was hard to do. I will say this, and this is just me, spin foiling theory. There have been a few people that have come out, like the Capitano voice actor who came out on X, Twitter, whatever, who actually stated that apparently they called one meeting, or apparently they want to get back to work. And I can't remember if it's him or some other voice actor in the field, but again, I'm just reporting what I'm hearing at this point. So take this all with a grain of salt. But apparently there was one vote to call the strike, and beyond that, basically the union kept digging in their heels and waiting, despite the fact the voice actors wanted to get back to work because, they're running out of money.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I don't know. I don't feel like the actors won here. I don't feel like the studios won here. I honestly don't even know if SAG won at this point. I mean, they made themselves look like complete and utter fools by the looks of it. At least in the circles that have been, I suppose, looking into the fine print and possibly paying attention, if you want to call it that way. So I don't know. Is there a winner
Nobody
here?
really
You tell
wins
me.
here.
Yeah, nobody really wins here. Yeah, we sure get AI protections, and while that's a plus, but like I said, just because AI isn't going to replace you anymore doesn't mean other voice actors won't.
Yeah.
Because like I said, all that work is moving out of the country and might stay out of the country. So we'll see. But yeah, that's kind of where we are. Again, like I said, hopefully this is good news going back in. Again, I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope all of the work comes back to the US because, I'd like to see people get their jobs back, and I'd like to see work in the US because I'm from the US and I'd like the possibility of voice acting someday. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe if the
I
show
don't
takes
know.
off. I don't know.
I don't know.
That's saying that I don't want to see people that are in other countries not get their shot. Like I said, the people that are doing the voice work in the UK is absolutely great. I mean, the Escoffier voice actress, that was kind of funny. We literally had a Gordon Ramsay play character in a French kind of locale, but because she herself is, I think, from Britain, occasionally you'd hear the British accent come through the lines. So it's like the character's meant to be, I believe, a riff on Gordon Ramsay as like a female version of Gordon Ramsay. Just let the British voice actors have the British accent. I mean, it works far better if you ask me.
That's the other thing about it too, is the fact that like sometimes some people just fit a character. There are some people who just fit it.
Yeah, so But anyways, yeah, that's kind of where we have it. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, hope you loved it. I mean, like I said, let's hope this is all great, and we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Have a good one.